All right, let's head back to Panem, shall we? Because today we are diving deep into the brand new Hunger Games prequel that is everybody talking, Suzanne Collins's Sunrise on the Reaping. Look, we all know Haymitch Abernathy, right? He's Katniss's broken, boozy mentor, the cynical victor from District 12. But what if I told you everything you thought you knew about him was just the tip of the iceberg? This new story asks a huge question. Who was he before all that? Who was the 16-year-old kid who actually walked into that arena? So, this new prequel throws us right back into the dark, twisted heart of Panem. We're talking 24 years before Katniss Everdeen ever even volunteered as tribute. And the setting? Oh, it's the infamous 50th Hunger Games, a year that goes down in history for being especially brutal.
Okay, so just what made Haymitch's game so unforgettable? Well, it all comes down to a particularly cruel little twist from the Capitol, something called the Second Quarter Quell.
Now, for anyone who might need a quick refresher, a Quarter Quell is a special edition of the games that happens every 25 years, and they're designed by the Capitol to be, even more terrifying than usual. Each one has a unique, brutal twist meant to remind the districts exactly who's in charge. And trust me, the twist for the 50th, it was a big one.
How big? Try this on for size. Instead of the usual 24 tributes, the Capitol decided to double the reaping. That's right, 48 kids. 2 boys and 2 girls from every single district were sent into that arena. The odds were, definitely not in their favor.
And from District 12, we get these 4 unlucky souls. You've got Haymitch, obviously. Then there's Maesley Donner, and if you're a diehard fan, that name should definitely ring a bell. Rounding out the group are Wyatt Callow and a young girl named Luella McCoy. These are the faces of Haymitch's generation.
Now with a story this juicy, you just knew a movie adaptation was coming, right? And it is. It's already slated for a 2026 release, and the casting news has been absolutely insane. So let's take a look at who's bringing these characters to life. First up, stepping into the massive and much younger shoes of Haymitch Abernathy is Australian actor Joseph Zada. So he's taken the torch from Woody Harrelson, and he's going to show us the clever, courageous kid behind the myth.
And, of course, who's pulling the strings? None other than President Coriolanus Snow. The incredible Ralph Fiennes is taking over from the late great Donald Sutherland. And what's really key here is that this isn't the conflicted young man from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. No. By this point, Snow is in full-on villain mode. He is cruel, he is tyrannical, and he is at the absolute peak of his power.
Okay, this next one was a huge fan favorite casting choice. The one and only Elle Fanning is going to be playing a young Effie Trinket. But here's the twist. She's not an escort yet. In this story, a super young, lavender-haired Effie actually steps in to help out her sister and ends up becoming a stylist for the District 12 tributes. And speaking of perfect casting, get this. Jesse Plemons is playing a young Burdock Everdeen, a role originated by the legend Philip Seymour Hoffman. And this is a huge deal because the book reveals something massive. Burdock wasn't some latecomer to the rebellion. He was actively working against the Capitol way back then, a full 24 years before he helped bust Katniss out of the arena.
Even the Lionsgate co-president, Aaron Westerman, basically said Plemons is going to honor Hoffman's legacy while still making the character his own. And really, this casting just hammers home a super important point. The seeds of the Second Rebellion, they were being planted decades earlier than we ever knew.
But okay, beyond the awesome story and the killer cast, the real magic of this prequel is how it connects everything. It deepens the entire Hunger Games universe in ways you won't believe. For longtime fans, the connections it reveals, they are a massive payoff.
So, let's just get our bearings for a second. This timeline shows you exactly where Sunrise on the Reaping fits into the whole saga. It's basically the perfect bridge, connecting the early days we saw in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes with the start of Katniss's story in the original trilogy.
Okay, now I want you to think back to the original books for a second. What do we really know about Katniss Everdeen's parents? I mean, we know her dad was a hunter who could sing, her mom was from the town, but their story has always been kind of hazy, right? Well, not anymore. Prepare to have your mind blown, because this is a total game changer. It turns out that Haymitch Abernathy's best friend growing up in District 12 was Katniss's father, a boy named Burdock Everdeen. Yeah, let that sink in. This completely changes how he sees Haymitch's dedication to protecting Katniss. It's suddenly so much more personal. And it doesn't even stop there. It gets deeper. The book reveals that years before their kids would be in the arena together, Burdock Everdeen, Katniss's dad, actually saved the life of Otho Mellark, Peeta's dad. The Everdeens and the Mellarks, their families were connected, protecting each other, a whole generation before Katniss and Peeta.
And hey, remember that iconic Mockingjay pin? Well, we finally get its full origin story. Turns out it first belonged to Maisie Donner, Haymitch's fellow tribute. After she died in the games, it was passed down through her family, eventually landing with her niece, Madge Undersea. So when Madge gave that pin to Katniss, she was, without even knowing it, sending a powerful symbol from the Second Quarter Quell right back into the arena.
So when you put all these new pieces together, they force us to do one thing: completely rethink everything we thought we knew about Haymitch Abernathy. This book isn't just a backstory, it's a total recontextualization of his entire character.
Think about something as simple as the way Haymitch always called Katniss sweetheart, you know? She always just thought it was him being sarcastic and condescending. But the real reason behind it, well, it's absolutely heartbreaking. You see, one of his fellow tributes from District 12 was a 13-year-old girl named Luella McCoy. She was a friend of his, and his nickname for her, ever since they were little kids, was Sweetheart. So every time he looks at Katniss and said that, he wasn't being sarcastic at all. He was seeing the ghost of a friend he lost. It was a trauma he could never, ever escape.
And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. Haymitch's victory wasn't just about survival. It was a deliberate act of defiance, a middle finger to the Capitol that was so powerful, President Snow spent the next 24 years trying to erase it and trying to break the boy who pulled it off. Haymitch wasn't just a broken-down drunk. He was a revolutionary, right from the very beginning.
So it all comes down to this one question, doesn't it? When you know the full story, the depth of his trauma, his long history of defiance, his secret connection to her family, was Haymitch the mentor Katniss deserved, or was he, with all his flaws, the only mentor who could have possibly prepared her for the rebellion that he himself had started all those years ago? It changes everything.